I am somebody who enjoys chemistry, which I'm sure is not a shock to anybody who watches my videos. I read about it a lot, I study it a lot, and I use it a lot in various things. One aspect of chemistry and nuclear physics that I find very interesting are isotopes. Isotopes are just different versions of an element based on the amount of neutrons in the nucleus. Different isotopes of different elements have different applications and a whole wide range of uses. However, isotopes usually do not have names. Like, they don't have their own independent separate names, they are just the element and then a mass number. Like, for example, carbon-12, carbon-13, and carbon-14. Those are all just isotopes of carbon, but they do not have different names, they're just carbon. But that isn't the same for all elements. There is one element where its isotopes get unique names because it's special, or something. I am, of course, talking about hydrogen. Hydrogen has three naturally occurring isotopes: 1H, 2H, 3H. 2H is what's known as deuterium. Deuterium is what's used in heavy water and lithium deuteride in nuclear weapons. 3H is known as tritium. It's a radioactive element of hydrogen, and it's used in a few things, like little glow-in-the-dark keychains and stuff. It does actually have proper uses, but the glow-in-the-dark keychains are honestly kind of cool, but they only last like 7 or 8 years, and then they start to lose their glow because half-life. 1H is by far the most common in the universe. It's what makes up the bulk of the universe. It's what makes up water. It's what burned down the Hindenburg. It's just hydrogen. When you get hydrogen, that's what you're getting. So the question is, does 1H have a name? Deuterium and tritium have names, so 1H should have a name. And in fact, it does. That name is protium. People very rarely make the distinction unless it's needed for an application, and even then it's usually just deuterium and tritium that get singled out. Protium is just never used because nobody needs to use it. You just call it hydrogen and you're done. But I personally like using protium just to be annoying in the same way that I use Luna as a proper name for the moon, and Sol for the sun. Just to be kind of annoying in a sci-fi way. I also just like protium because it's a good descriptor of what it is. It's the proto-atom of all matter in the universe. You can make everything from protium. In fact, that's kind of what happened. When the universe first formed, it was mostly hydrogen, helium, and a bit of lithium. So from all of that, we got everything else. So yeah, it's the proto-atom, protium, It's the simplest form of atom you can even imagine. One proton, one electron. Boom, you got it. Although I also like Henry Cavendish's name for it in the 1700s. He called it inflammable air, and I just find that very funny to me. Anyways, once hydrogen was discovered and properly isolated and seen as a separate stuff, it was called hydrogen, which means water formed, hydrogen, water generation. Anyways, not important. And they just went from there. It wasn't really until the 1930s when they discovered deuterium that they were like, oh, maybe we should give these actual names, and then protium got its name. I vaguely remember reading some controversy about the naming of protium, but I'm not sure. Because I know that protium, deuterium, and tritium were coined by Harold Urey in the 1930s when it was discovered. Maybe I'm thinking about helium. Because I know there is some controversy about the naming of helium, because the IUM at the end of helium is usually reserved for metals. And the fellow who coined the term, I forget his name, called it helium. Named after Helios, sun god. But, no, I can't remember. Maybe I'm just wrong about that. I don't know. I remember there being there was somebody who complained about the naming of protium, but I don't know. It's very vague memory. It's not important. Point is, yes, H1 is called protium. The most common element in the universe is called protium. There is a lot of it in your body, there's a lot of it around you. It's the most abundant element, or I should say the most abundant isotope you've never heard of. Or maybe you have. If you're watching my videos, you're probably a nerd like me and, well, know these things. Anyways, there is no point to this video. Like all the others, I was just thinking about it and I thought, that's kind of fun.